Okay, recording is on now. So good morning, everybody. So we talked about EC2 application load balancers, auto scaling group, and more, right? And a lot of concepts around EC2. Today we are going to talk about a completely new topic. It's one of the oldest AWS service. It's not the oldest, but it's one of the oldest, probably the second one or so. So it's called simple storage service. So essentially by the way, there are three S's. That's why they call it S3. You may have heard of it and you might have used it. I know some of you are using it. You don't need to use your EC2 to be able to use this S3. So simple storage service is nothing but your having an external hard disk in the cloud, like your Google Drive, like your Amazon OneDrive, okay, like your Dropbox. Essentially, that's all there to it. There's much more to it, but I know fundamentally, at the highest level, that's what it is. So Amazon provides that, AWS. So it is an object storage service. It is not a block storage like how we talked about EBS. So EBS is a block store where you'll install your operating system and then attach it to the EC2. But here we are talking about the object store. You can store your objects there. You can store your documents there. You can store your pictures, audio files, video files, PDFs, all of your tax documents. It's like you're having an external hard drive. But this is not, I mean, you can definitely use it for personal use, but this is not just for personal. It's much, much more powerful than that. So all of your enterprise, so small, medium, large enterprises can safely use S3 to store their documents. Okay. And what makes unique is that it's highly available and scalable. So we need to understand as architects, as a cloud architects, in general architects, you need to understand these couple of jargons here. One is availability, scalability, durability. You need to understand the fault tolerance and this terminology. Let's talk about it. So available. So essentially, availability is nothing but how often does it go down, or how often is it available? So out of 24 hours, how much time is your website available? Okay, so it's calculated monthly, yearly. So you might have seen this numbers like 99.99% of availability, or 99.8% of availability, or single 99.9%. Double nines is 99.99%. So essentially, 99.99% of the times your website is available. So if you have to design your application for 99.99% of your availability, you will have to take the redundancy and fault tolerance into consideration. Meaning, even if one availability zone is down, your application should be up and running. Let's say your Bank of America or Capital One. Okay, so they can't afford to, or any of these stock brokerage applications like TD Ameritrade. They can't afford to be down for a few minutes, in a month. Okay, so they'll have to be up all the time. I mean, maybe brokerage, they can be down during late nights. But all the other banks and a lot of mission critical applications, right? You can't afford to be down. Take AWS as a picture. So AWS can never be down because a lot of businesses across the globe, they depend on it. So availability is that. So S3 is a highly available service and scalable, meaning it can take from 1 byte to all the way, each file can be 5 terabytes of size. So it can take any number. It will naturally grow. You don't need any preset. Okay, give me S3 for 100 gig. No, you don't need it. It will naturally grow, and you pay for whatever you're using it. So you are not buying a hard disk like I need a 2 terabyte of hard disk and I'm paying $100 per year. No, you have unlimited amount of storage out there. You use it and pay for the data that you use it. And it's the third point is it's designed for 11 nines of durability. Durability meaning the possibility of losing the data. So it's a 99.99999, 9 times. So they have 2 nines in the front, and it's popularly called 11 nines in the industry. So it's they have 11 nines of durability. What it means is that probably you will, when you upload a file to AWS S3, maybe 1 in few billion instances, you could lose a file, meaning you can never lose a file. You can safely say that. You can't say it 100%, right? That's why this, they put it 11 nines durability. So when you upload a file there, they will redundantly copy this across multiple availability zones. So S3, we'll talk about storage classes in a second, but in some of them, they can sustain up to 2 availability zones going down. So even if 2 cities within that region, they go down, God forbid, something happens there, but still your data is available, and durability, no problem. And it could be available also, meaning you can read and write to it. So you can store data for various applications. This is for your web applications. Your enterprise can use for web applications, mobile applications, archival, or Hadoop systems, SaaS applications. You can name it. Any applications, pretty much, you can use S3 for storing the data. So there are various storage classes based on your need. If you want to upload your pictures, or let's say Bank of America, they print monthly statements. Okay, so they want to make them available for 6 months or so. After 6 months, they just need it for archival in case customer asks for it, or in case some auditor asks for it. There's something called SOX compliance, right, for all the financial industries. So in case some auditor, some government agency asks for it, so within government can ask, within the 7 years. So they want to store it, they want to archive it for 7 years. Then in that case, so the S3 storage class that we are talking about is different. So there are multiple storage classes out there. We'll talk about it in detail. And then you can use AWS REST API to store and get the files. So this is not, I'm not talking about, using your AWS management console only to upload the files. That's definitely one way to do it, but that's not the only way. So they provide robust REST API, and you can use that REST API. Okay, get the authentication key and then use that key to store your objects. And then they have their own mechanisms. There's another way to upload the files is called a CLI, command line interface. I talked briefly about it, but I said we'll talk later. We'll talk more later. So you can use CLI, and better yet, the third option is they built some SDKs. Okay, so if you're using Java, C# or any of these popular programming languages, they have SDKs. You can use SDKs. You don't have to, build your REST templates. Okay, to make a call to these REST APIs. SDK already built into it, so you can just use out of the box SDKs, and then you can use it. So you can integrate this with your code very nicely. And then S3 supports versioning. So it stores multiple versions of the same file. And then lifecycle management. We'll talk in depth about lifecycle management. Essentially, what lifecycle management is that, so after 3 months, I want my document to be stored into archive. Okay, I want to use a different storage class so that I will pay very less for it. Okay, after 2 years, I want my file to be permanently deleted so that I don't have to pay S3 anymore. So you can design your lifecycle management code around that. And then it supports encryption. Encryption also, it supports in several ways. You can supply your keys, or you can use the AWS keys to encrypt your data. So highly available and highly scalable object storage service. That's S3.
Without quick question.
Having to use EC2, you can safely use S3 alone. So you don't need EC2, you don't need Lambdas, you don't need several others. But I know a lot of companies out there that I know, they use S3 alone. Yes, sir. And by the way, I want to tell you something. You may have heard of a company called Dropbox, or you may have accounts in Dropbox. So Dropbox was completely built on S3, but the user interface is different. So if you want to write iPhone app, for example, if you have a skill set to write an iPhone app, okay, but all you need is just behind the scenes REST endpoints, right? Use your S3 REST endpoints, and then you build your fancy interface. That's exactly what Dropbox did. They brought into the picture was nice UI and the nice feature set there. And under the hood, they are using S3. Yes, go ahead, sir. Someone was asking something.
Yeah, so I had just a question. I mean, if you can go cover that first line that you have in the presentation. It's not a block store.
Yep.
Thank you.
So when I say not block store, meaning you cannot install operating system on this one, or you cannot install database on it. And then you want to run your executables from there. That is what I mean by not block store. Block stores, they are EBS volumes where they get attached to EC2. There you can, that's like your laptop, hard disk attached to it. You can go ahead and install your database on it, and then you can run your executables on it. But here you cannot run your executable. This is like your document store. Does it make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. Any other questions?
What is can we do any compression rate on this S3, Venkat?
Do we do any compression rate?
Yeah, for example, I mean, if I want to take a backup on this, I mean, backup to S3, I'm pointing my backup to S3, even though my database is 400 GB. When I take a backup, I mean, will it allow compression on S3?
No, actually there is no compression. It's taken as is.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll tell you something though. Remember we talked about snapshots?
Yeah.
So you can take a snapshot when you create an AMI, Amazon Machine Image, it creates the complete hard disk will be backed up and taken a snapshot. Okay, that whole snapshot is written in S3. I wanted to tell you that at that time, but I did not because we didn't know what S3 was at the time. Okay, but no, there's no compression. It's, I'll show you, even in the case of versioning, I'm going to show you that. So you'll have to pay for the as-is bytes that you use it. Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
So you said about the object store, right? So in IBM technologies, there is a concept called object store also there. So in that object store, actually it is provided by the IBM. So if we place the same object store inside this S3, so what about the security wise, like how I mean, actually that object store is secured and depends on the object store security, we will retrieve the document. Suppose if the same object store placed in the S3, so do we need to apply security on this object S3 again, or just it uses the existing object store security?
So let me see if I understand it right. Maybe I did not understand it fully. Are you talking about a scenario where you want to move it from IBM to here, or I didn't?
No, actually in IBM FileNet there is a concept called object stores.
Sure.
Generally, we will store the documents and we will retrieve the documents. So actually, in that object store, it contains only the metadata information. There is no like existing databases. Nothing will be there. Only the metadata. The documents will be stored somewhere. Suppose if I put the same object store into this S3, so again, is there any concept of security? I mean, this S3 will support any securities on top of this one to use that object store?
Yep. So I'll answer that, and probably with an example in a few minutes. So one of the aspects of S3 is it's highly secured. One thing that I just talked about is encryption. Okay, encryption is provided, and number two, every object that if you want to use S3, the first, let me talk about here, all the objects are stored in buckets. So there is a concept called bucket. Bucket is nothing but your folder. So you'll just create a bucket and then start dumping the stuff into the bucket, essentially, So give me 30 seconds, Kalyan? So buckets. Essentially, bucket is like a folder. That's where you store all the objects, and bucket names must be globally unique. So bucket names are shared across all the AWS accounts. So that's why you don't get a bucket, popular buckets, something like images. So if you're looking for a bucket name called images, probably that's taken on the day one of S3 introduction. That was probably in 2003. So test bucket must be taken already. So that's why when you delete a bucket, please exercise caution, because that bucket name, you may not get it. If I lose that bucket name, someone else can get that. So bucket names are unique across all the AWS users. The reason behind that is it is giving you a dedicated DNS name. See this one here? So your bucket name .s3 whatever the region name, let's say it's Ohio, US is 2B, and Virginia, US is 2A .amazonaws.com. It is giving you a complete DNS name. You can use your DNS name. Of course, 9 out of 10 times, why do you want to use this DNS name? You want to put a CNAME in front of it. You want friendlier website name. I understand that, but this is giving you a brand new DNS name like this. So that is why all of your bucket names must be unique. Okay, and I'll talk about security. Okay, so security, by default, when you create a bucket, that bucket is private. Okay, so nobody can access that bucket by default. When you drop an object inside an S3 bucket, by default that is private. Only you can access it. Only you'll be able to read the objects from that bucket, or only you will be able to write into that. So that's by default. But you can use something called ACL, access control list, and you can mention, okay, I want this bucket to be shared with Kalyan. I want this object specifically to be shared with Uma. So we can do that. And there is another concept called bucket policy. You can write a JSON-based bucket policies and mention, and you can restrict it to any level. Okay. And as I told you, by default, it's all private. And we are going to play with the bucket policies today. And then I'll show you how ACL's work also, how secure this one is. I'm going to show you that with an example.
Hey, Venkat.
Venkat. Go ahead.
A
Go ahead.
quick question, Raghu. So, suppose if I'm uploading like 15 folders, each folder has like 5 GB of data. So are all of them considered one object, or all of them considered, is it 15 objects?
Each file is an object inside the bucket.
Okay.
Okay. You have one bucket. Within a bucket, everything is an object. Simple.
Okay. So, but mine, I think 15, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Regarding security, and you can specify access control list at the object level. You can say that I want this object to be shared by this. I want this object to be shared by this group. You can do that. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think, so mine 15 folders that I upload will be put into one bucket, right? Or will they be spread across?
Bucket is one. Okay.
Understood.
Bucket is one. You know what? So before we do any of this, I wanted to show you how simple this one is. So before we even talk about the storage classes, and probably I'll mention it. So let's go ahead and create a bucket. Maybe that's, a lot of times it's easier to do it rather than trying to explain it. So go to services here and then go to storage S3. So if you have never created any bucket, you will see a different, different description saying that, okay, what's S3? It talks about it, and then say create a bucket. So click on create a bucket here. So by default, when you select S3, observe this one, your region is changed to global, because S3 does not require region selection, because whatever the bucket name that you are specifying it here, that bucket name must be unique across all the accounts, across all the regions in the world. I want you to understand that. So I'll say bucket name test. Okay. And I want to create this bucket in US East 2, Ohio region. And then by default, look at this one. So by default, block all public access. So when you create a bucket, it is private by default. Okay. And without looking at even the advanced settings, let's try to create a bucket. And it tells me that bucket with the same name already exists.
Venkat.
Yes.
So technically it is not a region. We are getting availability zone, right? Not the region, right? Region as the logical space. So it's like Ohio is one region, but it has a 3 availability zones. So we get availability zone rather than the region.
When you create a bucket within a region, yes, region is a logical concept, Ketan. Okay.
Yes.
But when you create a bucket within this region, I told you there is an availability of 99.99% and then redundancy of 11 nines, right?
Yes.
The way they are able to achieve that is because they will redundantly copy the objects in your bucket into more than 3 availability zones in a standard storage class. They copy it in at least 3 availability zones. So even if 2 availability zones are down, your file is still available. You are still not losing your data. Does it make sense?
Yep. So that's why this is it's a region, but not it's a.
Yeah.
We are adding as a one kind of one availability zone, but they are copying it at other places.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. So you don't have to say that I want my file to sit in this particular availability zone. Actually, this may be a good concept to understand so that you will not get confused in the certification. Okay. When you create a bucket, you create that bucket in a specific region, but not in a specific availability zone. As I told you, I didn't tell you yet, but see this storage classes. One of the first storage class is this S3 standard. So the standard S3 storage class, it will store a redundant copy in at least 3 availability zones. Okay, so I'll show you the next one here. See this one here, availability zones. This is a storage class called standard. By default, this is where it will store. And then availability SLA is 99.9% of SLA. Okay. So by the way, AWS is backed by SLA. If you guys don't know what an SLA is, every architect must know service level agreement. So Amazon is giving you that service level agreement, meaning if your website is, if S3 is down for more than 99.9% of the times. Okay. So let's take a look at it. Let's for fun, let's Google this guy. Availability. Percentage to minutes.
Is there any history of Amazon lost their SLA or had an issue with their SLA?
Okay.
Just general question. I am not.
Did Amazon lose SLA?
Yep.
I believe they did. So
They did? They compensate back?
Last year or year before, they have their own database called Amazon Aurora. So Amazon Aurora was not available. You guys remember that incident where a lot of websites had issues?
Mm-hmm.
It's because of Amazon Aurora database was down, and Amazon Aurora is their pet project. Pretty much, that's the pride. Amazon's pride. Can you guys?
I think Netflix went down at that time.
I don't know if Netflix went down or not, but I know a lot of websites have gone down at that time because of Aurora. Because Netflix may not be using Aurora. Okay, I know one instance there. Okay, take a look at this one, guys, everybody. So if someone says that I will make my website 99.9% available, every architect should know this. I mean, you don't need to buy hard the sheet, but at least an idea here. Okay. So if you say that your website need to be 99.9% available, that means your website can be down 8.77 hours per year, within a year. And where is your month? So 43 minutes, it can be down for 43 minutes within a month, 99.9. But if I say that 99.95% of the times, your website can be down for 21 minutes. So if you say that my website is available 99.99% of the times, then your website can be down for 4.38 minutes. So this is where I was, we wrote an SLA with, one of the biggest automotive companies in the world. We wrote this kind of SLA, 99.98. And we had about 8 minutes per month. So we had 8 minutes. No matter what happens, we need to bring up within 8 minutes. So that is why we had to architect that very challenging situation. We had to move between Northern Virginia to Oregon region within 5 minutes. So we actually scripted our complete infrastructure in such a way that we were able to move from east to west within 5 minutes. Because if things go wrong, something happens in Virginia region, okay? Then we have to be able to be up before this. To meet the SLA, you can't be down for more than once in a month. And within that one instance also, you have to bring your application back up within 8.77 minutes. Otherwise, they can bring their lawyers and then say, hey, you said your website will be up for 99.98% of the times. And then, but you are down for more than 8.77 minutes within a month, and then pay me penalty. So then you're talking at it's a different, you have to bring your lawyers and then, have them talk. It's a legal discussion now. You understand? So when Amazon says that they provide this kind of SLA, 99.9% availability SLA with this S3 standard case, that means it can be down up to 43 minutes within a month. I don't think they're down for that much, but they're just covering their backs. That's all. Does it make sense? Okay. So,
most of the
go ahead.
most of the SLAs are being communicated in hours terminology, right? Venkat, they would, for example, I will say like, okay, my system will be up and running in 2 hours or 3 hours whenever there is a downtime occurs. And for example, I cannot expect downtime based upon the for example, for some reason, obviously, I got like 5 times downtime per year for obvious reasons. I can still bring up the system in 2 hours or 1 hour.
That's those days are gone. Okay, so you're talking in 2019, 2020, cloud architecture world, right? So Amazon like company, okay, having millions of small to medium to big enterprises like Capital One. The entire Capital One infrastructure is on Amazon. Do you guys know that? Not even one server they have it within their data center. Not even one. They're pretty much acting as a technology company more than a bank. It's my favorite company. In fact, by all means, they're the highest technical savvy people. Okay, so point is no. The point is this one. So Amazon is boasting. So companies like Capital One and Netflix are completely on Amazon, and Amazon is boasting that I'm available. My S3 standard is available for 99.9%. I'm giving you an SLA. You can go to court if I breach that. Is clearly saying it. Does it make sense? You can't take hours. No.
How long you told me that AWS had a downtime like a couple of years ago. How long it took for them to bring it back online?
I think 2 hours or something, if I'm not wrong.
So that means 2 hours on that particular instance, correct?
Yes.
So that means they didn't reach their SLA. If my understanding is
entirely possible. If that is the only instance for the whole year, take a look at it. If that's the only instance for the whole year, and if they're able to bring their system back in 2 hour 19 minutes, then they're okay. They're within their SLA.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they for that one instance, if that instance, okay, anyway, that's a different topic, but I just want to understand that because there might be a couple of instances that means they still need to look at the architecture again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
But a lot of times being an architect, the reason I wanted to bring up to you guys is that, you are not developers. You are, I'm projecting you guys as an architects, right? So you will write documents like this, or you will be, you may have to read the documents like this. If your marketing guys goes and sells your product, that, hey, you know what? Somebody wrote, in all fairness, in my case, right? Somebody wrote at the marketing level that, hey, we'll provide this 99.98% of the availability, and that's it. We were stuck with this 8.77 minutes within a month. That is why we had to architect it. And they wrote in a service level agreement, SLA, that, we will provide you a disaster recovery environment. Okay, meaning it's a what a disaster recovery is. When things go wrong completely, then I'll bring you up to I'll bring your application in a different place. Okay, so when we wrote that disaster recovery, also we didn't write it at the availability zone level. Somehow we wrote that we will bring in a different region. So if things go wrong in East, then we have to be able to bring up in West, in Oregon data center within 8.77 minutes. Okay, so the reason I'm bringing up it is, being architects, it's important, not just technical aspects, but you'll have to understand this. Otherwise, company's credibility, your credibility is at stake. So just understand that. I know I started somewhere and went in a different tangent. I'm sorry about it. Okay, so I'm trying to create a bucket here. Test bucket. No, test name obviously is not available. So let's see if my Java Venkat is available. I tried the bucket name, Java Venkat within Ohio region, block all public access by default. Let's go and create it. Yes, it's available. So it's that easy. You just created a bucket in US East 2, okay? And still you are in global because of S3, because all the S3s, S3 names are unique across all the regions, across all the AWS accounts. I want you to understand that. So click on this guy. This is my bucket. My bucket is empty at this point. My folder is empty. You can upload an object. So let me go ahead and upload my picture. Not my picture, but you know what I'm saying. So click on upload, add files. Wright Brothers First Flight. I was just looking for such a nice image and I found this. So I clicked next and then manage users. Okay, I'm the owner, this account. This guy can do read, write, everything, and manage public permissions. No, I'm not granting public access yet. Click on next. This is where you will specify the storage class. Okay, there are 6 storage classes. The first one is a standard. This is what will give you 99.9% of SLA. And then it's built for 11 nines durability. Everyone will give you 11 nines durability, so your file will never lose. 11 nines meaning 1 in a few billion times. So you can safely assume that nothing will happen to your files, okay? No matter what happens, even in the case of availability zone goes down, okay? So designed for availability 99.99, it's designed for that, but they will not give you service level agreement. They don't sign for 99.99, but they designed they architected for it 99.99% of the times, okay? So meaning it's designed for 4.38 minutes within a month. So that much downtime, that's how they design. But they're giving you SLA of 99.9%, and they store your object in more than 3 availability zones. Okay, what it means is even if 2 availability zones are down, your object is still available. Okay, so minimum capacity charge per object, there's no minimum. You can upload anything from 1 byte until 5 terabytes. One object can be, meaning one file can be up to 5 terabytes of file. And first byte latency, meaning once you upload a file into your S3 bucket, it's available for you to read within milliseconds. You can get it, okay? That is not the case with all the storage classes. So let's say your Glacier. So Glacier is your archival service. Okay, this is where you want to store your, let's say earlier I was taking a Capital One Capital One example, right? So it generates monthly statements. So it wants to make these PDFs available. When a user wants to look at their monthly statement, it should be available immediately within milliseconds. Then you want to use your standard or standard IA is infrequently accessed. There is a difference between standard infrequently access. You will pay a little bit of less price for standard infrequently access, meaning you're not accessing it frequently. Then it will put it in a different location, okay? But when it is available within milliseconds. When you need it, it's available within milliseconds. Does it make sense? But it's infrequently accessed. So they will charge you, when you need it, they will charge you the data transfer fees, your objects, your packets out of AWS, okay? So they charge you for that. But when you need it, it's available within milliseconds. But after 6 months of time frame, if any customer wants to get their monthly statement, they need to email Capital One, and then they will be able to provide you within 24 hours. Let's say they built a use case like that. Then after 6 months, they will use something called lifecycle management. They will define the life cycle of the objects in such a way that after 6 months, you can move them to Glacier. Glacier is their archival facility. Okay, archival service. Again, they will provide you 11 nines durability. But when you need it, after you store it, whenever you need it, it takes up to select minutes or hours. So they will actually pull it up, and then they'll make it available for you. Okay, but there is another one called S3 Glacier Deep Archive. This Glacier Deep Archive, it can take up to hours. It can take up to 12 hours to bring the object back. So after 6 months, you can safely store all of your monthly statements into S3 Glacier Deep Archive. If you are an architect for Capital One, and if you got a requirement like this, hey, I want to store my customers' statements, and I want to make them available in the first 1 month. I want to make them available within milliseconds. Okay, whenever customer needs it, we have to be able to provide it. But after 6 months, they will email us when they need it. Like 6 years down the line, they will email us saying, can you send me statement for the January of 2012? Okay, it's been 8 years. So then they can do it within 24 hours. Then obviously I don't need to store that in S3 standard, because I need it very infrequently, and it's only there for archival reasons. And I'm okay if it's not available. When I need it, I can wait for up to 12 hours, then go put it in S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Then this is the cheapest option. This is where you can dump all of your terabytes of videos that's out there, your kids' videos. And if you only need it, when you need it, you can wait up to 12 hours, then go to S3 Glacier Deep Archive. Or you can wait for a couple of hours, then go to S3 Glacier. So Glacier Deep Archive is the cheapest option. Let's say that, I don't need, my files are not that important. If I lose them, not a big deal. I have other means to recreate them. These are generated on the fly. So I don't need that much robustness. Okay. So it's good to have them, but if one availability zone is down, then it's okay to lose the files. I'll be able to regenerate them. Then use this one called S3 one zone IA, one zone infrequently access. In this case, its availability zone is only one. It's only stored in one availability zone. If something happens to that availability zone, your files are lost. Okay. But its a minimum is 128 KB, and minimum storage duration charge up to 30 days. So you'll have to keep it for 30 days. And these Glacier is 90 days and Glacier Deep Archive is 180 days. You have to keep it. Okay. So there is an S3 standard and S3 standard infrequently access. So infrequently access is a little cheaper than standard. Standard is, most expensive one. So there is intermediate, there is a in-between storage class that they introduced recently called S3 Intelligent Tiering. So this intelligent tiering, it's built on machine learning and artificial intelligence. So what they do is they'll continuously check your usage patterns. Based on the pattern, they will switch between S3 standard and S3 standard IA. So if you're using certain kinds of files very infrequently, they'll move it to standard IA so that you'll get charged less. Otherwise, you're reading it so frequently, then they'll move it to standard. So This is something in between. This one, intelligently, it will switch between standard and standard IA. So these are the 6 storage classes. And standard, intelligent hearing, IA, one zone IA, Glacier Deep Archive. There's a 7th one called reduced redundancy. It's an older service. It was renamed as one zone IA now. So it's highly recommended not use this anymore. Okay.
Do they have a free tier?
Can you say that again?
This is Raghu. Do they have a free tier?
Is there a free tier? No.
Okay.
Oh, free tier for AWS 1-year accounts?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to play around with S3, I mean, do they have a free tier?
That's a good question. Actually, free tier, let's find out. S3 may not be eligible for free tier because you can definitely play with it. And we never paid anything. No, we were able to clean up within a day, and then we never paid anything for S3, Raghu. So you can safely do it, but do not upload any terabytes of files. If you're
Okay, sure.
meg files, totally fine. Okay.
Hey, Venkat.
And your specific answer, we'll probably Google it and find out. Yes.
For the S3 archive, do they have any retrieval services?
They do retrieval services. You can request for the objects and they'll make it available, and then you can go get it and within hours. And they will charge for the transfer of the files.
Oh, so every time we need to make a request, but
Absolutely.
They do not have any other APIs or something which automatically.
Yeah. I'm saying API only.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Will it take? It's an instantaneous, or it takes time to get that back?
No, depends on these two, right? You will get it up to hours. This is a Glacier Deep Archive. They'll make it available within 12 hours. It can take up to 12 hours, Deep Archive. Does it make sense?
How about the normal S3 Glacier? I mean,
S3 Glacier, it takes hours, from minutes to hours. That's what they say.
Then in most situations that we have to use normal. If we want instantaneous, we need normal S3.
Oh, absolutely. In all normal circumstances, you want to use S3 standard. Okay. So I was telling you about the use case, right? Your monthly statements. You need them immediately. So you want to put them in standard. Okay. Or actually not standard. Maybe I'll take back. Why not put it in standard IA? We are talking, architects are discussing, right? We are brainstorming. Why not standard IA? I'm questioning my own judgment, right? So I was thinking that, hey, let's put it in standard. But why? Statements are so infrequently accessed. If we have 1 million customers out there, how many of them really view? Even if they view, they don't need it. They use it infrequently. They use it so infrequently, but when they need it, I need this to be available within milliseconds. Then I'll go for infrequently access. This is where I will store it.
So no, there might be a use case, right? There might be a use case where I don't really want to store my documents directly in my database. So whenever a document, for example, your TNE receipts or anything you want to upload on your system, I want to develop such a way. I don't want to store them on my database. I can create an archive link where whenever you upload a document, it will directly go and sits in standard IA or standard or
Absolutely.
But again, I want to retrieve it back and see whenever I want it. I'm not worried about. I'm using S3 as only an archive place, right? And because to reduce my database size, there might be use case like that.
I get it, but see, use the term archive carefully there. Because especially in the case of the document archival, right? So you are saying, I'm using S3 as an archival and I need it immediately. That's little, contradicting, right? Why do you need it? When you are archiving it, 9 out of 10 times you archive for safety reasons, like, government can ask any time within 7 years, or what are the other reasons, SOX reasons, like, my auditor can ask me anytime within 7 years. So those are the reasons you want to go for archive, right? But all of your other documents, let's say your policy agreements, let's say in your, whatever the company that you are doing, right? So all of those documents, you put them in standard, and so that they are available. So you don't need to use it only for archival, Ravi. I'm underlining this. I don't know if did I confuse you? The archival is it's a separate use case where you want to store it for good reasons, but you do not need it so frequently. If you want it so frequently, that's not archival. You want to go for standard intelligent hearing or standard AI.
Or Venkat, maybe you can like upload to S3. If you're accessing it after 6 months, you can move to Glacier, right? You can set up the life cycle.
Exactly. That was the use case I was saying about the statements, right? That's where the life cycle management policies will come into picture. Ravi, did I answer your question? So I'm putting it in standard, and okay, and then click next and upload. Okay, so this is my Wright Brothers flight, and then let's go and click on it and take a look at this one, guys. This is my bucket name.s3.region.amazonaws.com. This is the DNS name. This is the DNS name for my bucket. So the reason bucket name is unique is because it is part of my URL, Amazon URL. Okay, / and this is your object. This is your object name. So let's try clicking on it and then see what happens. Access denied. By default, your bucket is private and all the objects within the bucket are private. Make sense? So how do I make it public so that I can safely give this JPEG file to anyone? Let's go to this bucket. Actually go to Amazon S3 and select this bucket. Actually click on this bucket and then go to permissions here. And then block public access, right? So I said block all public access is on. Now go click on edit and then take this guy out. Now I'm saying that I don't want my bucket to be private anymore, meaning the objects inside this bucket can be public now. It doesn't mean that every object that you store will be automatically be made public. That's not what I mean. Your bucket is public now, meaning objects can be made public. Without bucket being public, without bucket having public access, your objects cannot be made public. Does it make sense, everybody? So at this point, my bucket is public, meaning your objects can be public now. It doesn't mean object is public. Let's go into Java and this is my bucket name and this is my object name and click on my object. It's still access is denied because my object is public, but my bucket is public, but object is still not. So what do I want to do? So
grant access.
Go ahead.
You have to grant access now.
Exactly. At the object level. This is an
object level. Yep, you're right.
So select
give access at the bucket level, right? And now we are going on.
You got it.
Okay.
There are a couple of ways you can do it. Select this object, go to actions, and then make public. You can make this public, make public. And then now go click on it, click on this URL, and you should see this beautiful picture. So I will share this. You can, this object URL, you all can try pretty much from your own. It doesn't matter whether I'm logged into the AWS account or not. Understand? So I'm sharing this to everybody. Please go ahead and give it a try.
So Venkat, you can have folder as an object and give permissions for each folder right now, if you want to.
So yes, you can create a folder also, and then yes, you can do that. But each folder is also created as an object, right?
Yes, yeah. So you
The
can
bucket
give
is different.
access level to each folder.
Yep. So are you able to access it, everybody? I sent it here. Wow. Okay, see this Sindhu created this bucket and this picture. I love this picture actually. JPEG. Okay. Sindhu sample bucket.s3 useast2 Amazon AWS.com/. Okay, very good. Okay, you got it.
Yes, Venkat.
So you can upload your PDF statements, everything. You can do it. But this is one way to do it, right? There are several ways. You can use a CLI and your SDK and your REST endpoints. Hey, by the way, I told you that S3 exposes a REST endpoint to store and read your objects in S3, right? So when you upload an object in S3, you will get HTTP status code 200 for that. It's a very important from a certification perspective. You will get HTTP status code 200 when you place an object. Okay. So this is about bucket objects, but let's talk more about it. Let's go deep dive. Okay, this is the bucket, and let's go to properties here. Okay, versioning. So somebody was asking about versioning here, or I mentioned it. So you can keep multiple versions of an object in the same bucket. Click on it and enable versioning. Let's go ahead and enable this guy. Once you enable it, you can only suspend it. You cannot delete your versioning. You can suspend it. If you want to completely delete it, then you'll have to delete the bucket. That's the only way. Go to overview now. Now, the properties, right? Oh, by the way, since this is the bucket name I have taken, right? Java Venkat, you can try. Anyone else, you can try creating a bucket with the same name and then see. You should get the error. And by the way, Sindhu created this here, right? And you can try the same. Sindhu sample bucket. Okay, you can try the same name. That should be taken. It doesn't matter what she created in US East 2, but you can create in US East 1. You can try creating in US East 1 the same name. It will not allow it. Okay. So versioning is enabled now. Take a look at this one, guys. I'm creating an index.html just for fun. Actually, no, not an index.html. Okay, version 1. Let's say this is version 1. I'm creating a file called version 1 version.txt. Okay. So I'm uploading version.txt now and directly upload. Obviously, click on it and then try to go there. Access denied because this object is not public. Okay, for everybody. Now, earlier, what did I do? I went into this, selected this object, actions make public. That's one way to do it. But now I'm going to click on this guy and then go to permissions and then go to public access here. I'm using this guy now. So access to the object, read object, everybody can read the object, click on save. Now this object is public and go, this is version 1. Okay. So now what I'm doing is, this is version.txt. So now I'm adding an additional line here. This is version 2. Okay. Now I'm uploading the same file again now. I'm uploading the same file again now. Version.txt file. I'm uploading it. Now my bytes would have changed it, and click on this guy and now try going into that. Access denied. How come? I just gave public access, right? I tested it also. Are you guys understanding what I'm trying to do here?
Yeah, so it's version level.
Exactly. Exactly. Go to Java Venkat now. Go to my bucket. So here versions, it's a hide by default. Click on show here. And now this is my version by default. Latest version is this version ID here. And the previous version is this guy. So I think Ravi asked this. Ravi, take a look at this one. A file with just one line. This is version 1, is this guy here. Okay, this one has 16 bytes and the second one has 34 bytes. Okay, it is storing both of them. And as is, there is no conversion, there is no compression, nothing. As is, it will store it. Okay. Now let's try going into this version. Obviously, it's not made public. Let's go make public. So how do I do that? Make public. I can, oh, this is a third way to do it. Click on make public here itself and then go this guy. Now I'm able to see this guy. Okay. Now, last thing I want to do is I want to delete this file. So this is versioned. Okay. This bucket has versioning enabled now. I'm deleting this guy. Actions, delete. It's gone. So there's no big deal, right? It's deleted. Do you think the file is deleted? Because versioning is enabled. Can anyone guess? Click on this version show. The file still exists. It's just the latest version file has a delete marker on it and with a different version, with a different version ID there. So all it does is your file is not physically deleted. When versioning is enabled for your bucket, your object will not be deleted permanently. Rather, it will just add the delete marker to that version. Make sense?
Can we set retention on those files, Venkat?
Can we set the retention on those files? Meaning, what exactly do you mean by that here?
So for example, if you create 10 different versions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Version 1 to version 10.
Yes.
Maybe you want like last 3 versions, but you don't really care about 1 to 7.
Ah, yes.
Every time, why I should go and delete it there specifically? Why can't I set a retention?
Yep.
Okay, if the file is less than 30 days or something, I will go ahead and automatically delete.
That is the lifecycle management. That can be done using lifecycle management. We'll do it right after this example. So let's say if I delete this delete marker version, okay, I will delete this top guy. Then do you know what happens now? If I delete the delete marker, can anyone guess what happens now? Now your latest version is enabled. Now I hide it. Now this is how you can resurrect your file. You just delete your delete marker version and your original file is back. So if you want to permanently delete an object for which the versioning is enabled, then the only option is select both of them and completely delete it. Now it's completely gone. It doesn't matter. Now it's completely gone. Make sense? Okay, so that's about versioning.
So Venkat, when the file is marked as delete, do they charge for it? Let's say you have like terabytes of data and you marked it as it's in the delete state, but it's not physically deleted.
Very good question. Very good question. What do you think? based
I
on
think they'll
based on what
charge.
we just did.
I don't think they'll charge. Yeah.
No, they will charge.
They will charge. Yep, it is still there.
They will charge because the file exists physically. Murali, we just saw the bytes, right? We just saw the bytes. So the file exists physically there in their AWS centers, right?
Yes, yeah, that's true.
Okay, so file physically exists, so they do charge for it, and that's why, you know, it's very important as an architect to understand the pricing into consideration. You must take pricing into consideration and then architect it. Okay, and you want to take advantage of the life cycle management, the scenario that Ravi brought up just now. So that is what, being an architect, you want to do it. So when versioning is enabled, every single change. So remember we talked about snapshots, and I mentioned snapshots are, you know, it will not take the complete data out. Rather, it only holds the incremental changes. Only incremental changes are actually retained, right? So that any point it will be able to construct the whole file. Remember we talked about the discussion with snapshot? So, but here, every small change in the file, the entire file is saved as a different version. The complete file, not the changes. It doesn't try to understand it because it doesn't know, it doesn't think. So let's say you are taking picture. You took a beautiful picture. You made couple of changes in it. Each change you're saving it as a version. It doesn't know anything about it, so it doesn't even try to guess between these file changes between these files. Okay, everything is a file for me. It will try to save it. Okay, so that's why as an architect you must take that into consideration. So you want to ask, okay, when versioning is enabled, how many versions do I want to keep it? Okay, how long do I want to keep it? What do I want to do with the previous versions of the, does it make sense to have the previous versions in the same storage class? Can I safely archive them so that I will save it? Why do I need it? Okay, good. You know, I'm saving it for 30 days for a reason, but after 30 days, why do I need all the versions of it? Can I safely delete them? Can I safely move them to Glacier Deep Archive? Okay, after that's, I'll save them in Glacier Deep Archive for 90 days. After 180 days, can I permanently delete them? Those are the choices that you have to take. Those are the functional and non-functional requirements you want to take into consideration. So all the function, you want to ask these questions to your business users and get the corresponding requirements, and then architect your solution for better. You have to take that in. You have to take cost into consideration. Cost is a big deal. Okay, guys, that's about versioning, and let's take a look at other aspects of it. So this is.
I'll get one quick question. So.
Kiran, yes, sir.
So there is only public and private for S3, or we have any security level, any other security permissions?
That's okay. Very good question. So Amazon S3 has you can write at the bucket level. Take a look at this. This is a bucket, right? Go to permissions here. So you have a block public access. You have access control list. So there are multiple ways you can do it, and access control list is one of them. So in access control list, you can say, hey, who can access for bucket owner? I am the bucket owner. And let's say I want to give certain access to Kiran's ID. So I can do that. I can enter Kiran's email address, and then I can specify whether he can list objects or whether he can write objects, read bucket permissions. So the public was only reading only, right? That's what we gave. So Kiran can write bucket permissions also. So I can give these accesses. And then I can also give the public access here. Okay, but there's one more, the most powerful one called bucket policy here. Click on bucket policy. You can write what all you want, you can give to who. Okay, bucket policy. This is where you can write your policy in JSON-like file. So you don't need to start from the scratch. Let's say go to policy generator. Click on policy generator. So here it helps you write a nice, AWS policy. So select the type of the policy, S3 bucket policy. Now I want to allow, let's say I want to write a policy in such a way that every object that is created in my object to be public. Okay. I want to say everyone, Amazon AWS service. Kiran, take a look at this one. AWS service is Amazon S3, and what actions can everybody do? It principle is who can. So I'm saying everyone can do these actions. Take a look at these many objects. So can he create a bucket? Can he delete an object? Can he delete a bucket? Okay, can he delete a bucket policy? Can he delete a bucket website? Can he delete a object tagging? Object versioning, can he do it? Describe job, can he do it? And get access point, can he do it? Get bucket notification, can he do it? And get object. See, get object is only one of them. Yes, he can only get the object. Everybody can get the object on this one. Everyone in Amazon, everyone can get that object is what I'm saying, right? Get object is granted to everybody in Amazon S3 service on this particular bucket. I'm giving the bucket name here, but I'm not giving the name of the bucket. Rather, I'm giving something called ARN, Amazon Resource Name. This is a unique identifier across all the Amazon services. So this is my ARN. ARN : AWS : S3 : that's bucket name. So I'm giving this guy here within this /*, meaning within this ARN, okay, within this particular resource, Amazon resource, every single object can be read by everyone is what I'm saying. And then add statement. And then for this particular statement, generate a policy. Now this is the JavaScript object notation. JSON file has been generated. Take a look at this one. Your policy ID version, statement, statement ID, and action is S3 get object. So I want to grant S3 get object. I want to allow this. And effect can be deny. I want to deny everything but get object. I can do that. Did you see the drop down, Kiran, there? How many options are there? Yeah. So you can go to that fine grain level. And here, this policy, what it's saying is, you can allow get object for every single principle on this particular Amazon resource. Does it make sense? So you can go to this level, and I will give this one now, and I'll put it, copy it here, and then save it. There you go. This bucket has public access now. So let's go ahead and save it. Overview. Now you go upload your file, your version file. By default, I'll just go ahead and, by default, every file in this bucket is public, because I created a bucket level policy. I created a bucket level policy that every single object in this bucket, every single principal can do a get object. S3 get object can be done. But if you really look at it, those many options are there. So you can be that fine grain. You can write your policy that fine grain.
Okay, so you can come up with our own custom policies too.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Can you override that policy at the object level again, Venkat, or not possible?
No, it's because once you put it at the bucket policy, then because especially this one is this one is at the public level, right?
Okay, so you can.
Yeah. Okay.
Venkat, can you
Yes.
please talk about course configuration?
Oh, course configuration. Yeah. This course configuration, especially course configuration. Let's talk about course configuration when we talk about. I wanted to show you guys a simple example later on
Okay.
in the course. I want to take a simple Angular based web application, and there I'm going to show you a REST endpoint where you can get the objects and all. But I mean, I can tell you at the high level what it is. You guys know about CORS, cross-origin resource sharing?
Yes.
This is for your client web applications, like your Angular-based applications that are loaded in one domain to interact with resources, right? So let's say that Geeta, right? So let's say you have a website called geeta.com, and that's built in Angular, okay? And now you are trying to make, but all of your images are stored in Amazon S3. Now you're making a website call outside of your domain, okay? So you can define your course configuration so that you are allowing other domains to come and grab these objects, essentially, like how you know typical course is, okay? So when I build that small web application, Geeta, I will show you a more concrete example.
Sure, Venkat.
Okay. So let's go back, and we talked about versioning. We talked about object locking, transfer acceleration, requester base. Okay, transfer acceleration is one thing that I wanted to talk, but before that, yeah, we can talk about transfer acceleration. Okay. Transfer acceleration. So let me bring up this regions here. So this is the across the globe. Amazon has these regions, right? These blue dots are regions, the red ones are upcoming ones. So this is, I brought up this example as a cross-regional replication, but a transfer acceleration. So transfer acceleration is, I live in Metro Detroit area. Okay, the nearest region for me is in Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, let's say. Okay. So if I upload a file, if I want to upload a file to an object in Singapore region, a bucket, I created a bucket in Singapore region. I want to upload a big object to Singapore. Okay. So what I can do is I can directly upload the object using my own, internet, and then send it all the way to Singapore. That's one option. But if I use the transfer acceleration, what it does is that, so it will upload my file to the nearest region. Actually, it's not even region, they call it edge location. Okay, we'll talk about CDN, content delivery network, later, but it goes to the nearest edge location, and from the edge location it will be shipped using Amazon's backbone in the fastest way possible to Singapore. So I'm not using the regular internet to upload this particular file from my home in Metro Detroit area into Singapore. it will be pushed, it will be uploaded to the nearest location, nearest Amazon location. From there, it uses Amazon's own ultra-fast backbone because they're all in the same infrastructure, right? So it uses Amazon's ultra-fast backbone internet to ship it in the fastest way possible to Singapore. Does it make sense? That's a transfer acceleration, and we can enable the transfer acceleration. Essentially, you can click on this guy here, transfer acceleration, want to compare your data transfer. So you have to give for a minute or so. From my location, if I do a direct upload, how long does it take to send, to upload a file to Ohio? If I use a transfer acceleration, how much time will it reduce? If I want to upload a file to San Francisco region, US West 1, if I use the direct upload, how long does it take? But if I use the transfer acceleration, how much time will I reduce it? So it gives you, you just give you, few minutes here, it will complete it. It's 13% slower. So my direct upload speed is 13% slower compared to the S3 transfer acceleration. Does it make sense? So you want to use your transfer acceleration, and this is what actually CDN, we'll talk about CDN and CloudFront, but this is what CDN and CloudFront uses, the transfer acceleration. Okay, and it's a good idea. Let's say, so what will be the use case for the transfer acceleration? Let's say I have a bucket in Ohio region, and a lot of my, or some of my customers are in, Singapore. Okay, so they want, my customers will be sending, they'll be uploading these objects into my S3 bucket that's sitting in Ohio region. So it doesn't make sense to use the regular internet because I want to provide them as rich experience as possible. So in that case, I'll use the transfer acceleration. Then behind the scenes, as I said, it will upload to the closest region, which is Singapore itself. And from Singapore to Ohio, it will come in a super fast train using Amazon's own backbone internet. Make sense, guys? That's a transfer acceleration. Let's talk about static website hosting. How are you guys doing so far? Interesting?
Yes.
Yes, Venkat.
We are going to combine everything together. Whatever we learn together, we are going to combine it. Okay. So later, probably in the next week or so, we are going to combine everything together. We'll do a small project like project, and then everything makes sense. Okay, so let's do a static website hosting. You can use, okay, we talked about S3 and we talked about EC2, and we installed Apache web servers, and then we built a small static website with index.html. Not a big deal, it's a small one. Okay, but you can use S3 buckets to deploy a static website. You can use S3 buckets to deploy a static website. If your website is static and there is no dynamic content, not Tomcat involved, you do not need Tomcat, you do not need web servers, Apache web server, Nginx, any of the web servers, you don't need it. Okay, you can use your S3 as a static web hosting. If it is pure static website, you can do it. If it's a dynamic one, it doesn't work. So I wanted to mention to you that a lot of these movie trailers, right? New Hollywood movies, when they release it, so almost every Hollywood movie, they have their own dedicated internet host, right? So they have their own URL. Let's say Iron Man 3. So ironman3movie.com or something like that. Okay. So it's a static stuff. All they have is pretty much a small, video trailer and, cast images, etc., right? It's a static website. So there's no reason to build it. There's no reason to build EC2 for that and install your web server, Apache on it, and then build it. And you don't know how many hits do you get it. You may get 5 hits on day one, and you may get 50 million hits in the next day if it goes viral. Does it make sense? So you don't need to do that. You can safely use S3 bucket as your static website hosting. How do we do that? Well, I'll show you. So S3 static website hosting. See your bucket name.s3-website. Now, if you're not using it as a website, your bucket name.s3.region.amazonaws.com. But here it's s3-website.region.amazonaws.com. So use this bucket, click on this guy, use this bucket to host a website. And then I will say that my index.html will be will be my index document, meaning it's a first document, okay, like your Apache. And if things go wrong, I will use error.html. This is where I will say that if somebody requests for a resource that's not available, I'm going to say that, I'm sorry, oops, something went wrong, a generic error message from my website, okay? And then click on save, that's all. That's it. Now go to, so I'll delete these guys. Now I'll create a new file, index.html. I'll say this is my static web page. Movie trailer is here. Right. Okay. And I can reference my trailer. My H2, I'm saving this as an index.html. And then I'll upload. And the good thing is I have public access anyway. I have my bucket policy in such a way that everything is public. So this is my index.html. And I mean, this is straightforward, right? But the beauty is the small change. Go here, go to properties, my website, static website hosting. So this is my website URL now. Yep, this is my website URL, and I'll send this to you guys. You can test it. And this is my website. Did you see that? This is how we were doing all along, right? We created, we created an EC2 instance on it. We wrote some Bootstrap script to install Apache on it and index.html. We did all of that stuff just for a simple website like this. Okay, you don't need any of that. You can safely use it. So please test that website. And I'm going to tell you that I'll show you a website. I have this, I have this company for some time back. This is the website URL, Sonic Vision LLC. This was my previous company. It's mine. I built it with my good friend. So we're not doing this anymore, but it was supposed to be a consulting company, etc. This is a static website. Click on, I built this in Angular with the images. I'm not really good at that. I accept it. I spent only a few hours on it. But anyways, after I built it in Angular for my own fun, so I built it as a static website. This is a static website about solutions, services, careers, contact, etc. Right? So this is a static website, and this whole static website, not a big deal, but this is built on Amazon S3. So this is completely Amazon S3. It's not in this account. So I'll show you. It's in a different AWS account. I'll show you guys. So this is not even here. Okay, there may be. I don't know. Maybe it's in a different account. So let me try. Okay, so it's in a different account. Take a look at this one, S3. Okay, there you go. So I have a bucket name called sonequationllc.com, including .com. You have to have it. You have to have it for a different reasons. I'll tell you those reasons later when we talk about Route 53. But take a look at that. So the entire HTML pages, assets, all of my JavaScript files, these are all generated JavaScript files from my TypeScript Angular application. Click on assets, all of these PNG files, everything. It's this is how I got my website. Okay, go to properties, static website hosting, because it's a bucket-based hosting. Click on this guy, and that's my website. This website, but you didn't have to go to this website, right? You directly went to sonequationllc.com. Okay, what magic did I do? Well, there is a different concept called Route 53. So that Route 53 is a DNS service that I put it up front. And then so that you don't have to remember this, my bucket name .s3 website your region.amazonaws.com. So yeah, that's about bucket hosting. It's simple, but essentially my point is all the static websites can safely be done using S3. Okay, you can use your S3 bucket to host your static website. Any questions?
So this S3 service is mainly for storage purposes and static content purpose, not for any dynamic or transaction based. Sorry,
not any dynamic for, and can you repeat that?
Transactions like real time, you do any transaction, any Java based or not?
No. So for any of the real time or the dynamic websites, you cannot use S3 web hosting. That is only for static. But for your websites, let's say you're building, you work for, Blue Cross area, and you give a lot of statements, right? All those statements will be stored in S3. I'm sure,
like reports, huge reports will be generated.
Say that again?
Reports.
Yeah, exactly. All of your reports can safely be in S3. Okay. And then in my previous company, we were using all the policy documents, we were uploading here, all the terms and conditions. They call it TNC, I believe, terms and conditions. All the terms and conditions, we used to store it here. And Java properties files, how the developers were using Java properties files, we were storing here. Okay, so that your code is your properties files are not bundled in the code, so that they are they're outside. Okay, at runtime they'll make an S3 call to get the properties. They'll get injected into your Spring Boot stuff.
Any images or any kind of
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. Images. This is the best place. Yes, most of your website images are actually from this one, and videos. Absolutely.
Yeah, even at my workplace, like we have a table, Venkat, where one column is a blob, because that column was taking a lot of space. So that one column we store in S3.
Ah, I see.
All other columns are based on combination key. So based on that key, we pull that blob and display on the UI. We serialize and deserialize before storing.
There you go. So all you have to do store is probably that S3, that particular image URL, the metadata information, and then you store the object itself in S3. Is that what you guys are doing?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a perfect.
So does it work as a CMS, like CMS system? Dynamically, you can make a change and it takes the effect immediate. I mean, like CMS, CQ systems.
No,
Okay.
but you will all the CMS. If you are building a CMS, right, content management system, right? Kiran? Okay. For your content management system, your S3 can act as document storage. Okay, but it doesn't have all the intelligence like your content management system. Okay. The additional intelligence you have to build it somewhere else, right? So you know what S3 can do. Well, using the REST APIs, you'll be able to store it, you'll be able to retrieve it. You can write the code around that. Okay. And you have your lifecycle management. Lifecycle management is particularly beautiful. Okay.
Yep.
In our organization, Venkat, we are doing a POC now. We are using a snapshots as not a typical database backups, because for non-production systems, not for production, to save some money. Basically, we are using S3 image snapshots, as a backup where we can restore, but we are still sending our archive logs to S3 bucket. So we can retrieve them back to the database file system level and restore them. It's still in POC. We just want to see how much money it will save and doing the calculations and everything.
Currently, where are you guys doing it?
Currently, we do have it's a typical BR backups concept which we are using.
Okay.
It's a full backup where it will go and store in.
Right.
Yeah, we don't, because it's consuming too much space. We don't want to go in that route. Because you remember, if you take a full backup of 13 terabytes database every week, it keeps on increasing, right?
And how many, the very good use case, Ravi, thank you for bringing this up. So I think it adds value to everybody. So your database backup, is there any regulatory restrictions out there? Like you have to.
Here's what I found.
Sorry. No, this is not for a production system, because every product will have certain restrictions, right? For example, if I'm managing my team, I don't want my production system without a vendor support. For example, if SAP wants to come for any reason, I went into a P1 situation and I still want to abide what SAP suggests, right? The support from SAP or whatever it is. But for non-production system, I don't care. However it is, because I can still restore database. So for production systems, we are not changing anything. We are still going according to SAP support or how SAP recommendation or standard practice. But for non-production system, we are trying to save money by doing all this, using using S3 as a use case.
So let's bring up that scenario based on what we learned so far. Let's say this is a production requirement. Okay, what storage class do you want to use it? What kind of questions do you want to ask to decide what storage class? For you,
I want to use standard, right? I don't want to really go when you say class. That's what you mean, right?
yep,
I mean,
storage
I
class.
want,
Yeah.
I want to use
How,
standard.
how often do you want to read that backup?
See, it all depends upon, for example, it depends upon the policy. For example, for if you take a production system, our retention is only 30 days. I don't want my because we take a yearly backups and we take a monthly backups, right? And a weekly backups and incremental backups. There are different types of backups which we keep. And for a production system, I don't want to keep I don't want to do a deduplication. I want to I still have a yearly backup. I still have a monthly backup, which I can store. I don't want to have a deduplication. Do you understand what I mean? Deduplication.
No. I'm sorry. Yeah, I understood that, right, Ravi? So when you need it, how frequently do you need your data that you are backing up?
I mean, it's all situation, right? It depends upon how. Okay. I mean, it all depends upon the situation. Because, for example, if a developer or
understood. But I don't. If I say, I'm a new guy coming into your organization, I don't know your situation. How frequently do you say that? Is it always like a web application, or no, I don't need it that frequently, but when I need it immediately? Tell me one of the two scenarios. I need it all the time is one option. The second one, I don't need it all the time, but when I need it immediately. A or B? Tell me.
B.
Very good. So you don't need it all the time, but when you need it, you don't want to wait for hours. What option do you go for? Does it make sense where I'm going? So that's where you will use the standard infrequent access. So standard IA is what you want to use it to save a little bit of money.
Oh, now I understand where you're trying to go. Okay, I get it. So for example, it all depends upon how fast you want to restore your database, if you need it.
Exactly.
For example, if you really want it back in few hours, or if a person can wait for more than, I mean, it depends, right? For example, if it depends upon my SLA, if my SLA says, okay, I can give or restore back the system within on a development system within 3-4 hours, it all depends upon how quickly
you totally nailed it. So if it's not a production system, and if you have a loose SLAs, little bit flexible SLAs, saying that, hey, if my test environment is something goes wrong with the test environment, I need to be able to bring the backup, okay, and then use the backup to bring up my database, okay. Yes, it can wait up to 4 hours, then go for S3 Glacier. You will save your organization much money, right? Where do you have to go? So if your organization says that, this is a sandbox environment, we can wait up to 12 hours when we need it. So I want this to be continuously backed up somewhere, okay? But when I need it within 12 hours, as long as I'm able to bring the data back within 12 hours, then I'm good. Then save more money and put it in Glacier. But one thing you guys want to understand it is, one thing you need to understand this one is, if you want to put it in S3 Glacier Deep Archive, you'll have to keep it for 180 days. Maybe this doesn't make sense. You don't want to keep it for 180 days. You understand? So if you want to keep it only for 30 days, something like your test backup, or QA environment, or sandbox environment, dev environment, maybe you don't need this much redundancy. Even if complete 2 availability zones are down, you want your data. Maybe you don't have that kind of requirement. Reduce your cost a little bit and then go for one zone IA. Infrequent one zone IA. That means only one copy will be stored in Amazon, and then, if things go wrong in the worst case, you lose the data. I mean, again, you understand where I was going. It's based on the criticality. So, right?
Yeah. I mean, this applies to quality systems and sandbox because I don't care about, I mean, I still need that backup, but not very frequently. Or even if I lose it, I can still get that data from production system.
Yep. So guys, there's an additional concept called cross-regional replication exists within S3. What this cross-regional replication means is I have a bucket in Ohio region here, okay? And I want to, every time an object is uploaded into this Ohio region, I want to keep a copy of it in my Mumbai region, because half of my clients are in Asia Pacific area in this India region, and half of my clients are in North America. Okay, so I want to ship this across, and then this is for backup reasons, and I also want to keep a copy of it here for other reasons. Okay, in that case, you can set up your something called cross-regional replication, and you'll be able to do a cross-regional replications only if your bucket has versioning enabled. That's very important certification question also. So you must have a versioning enabled. So when a file is dropped there, it will automatically copy it, into Mumbai region. So you will maintain a file here, you'll maintain a copy in your other region. So understand this cross-regional replication concept also. Okay. That's about, S3. I wanted to show you more, but I want to bring up AWS S3, everything together, and then, bring up a nice, I want to show you a couple more examples later, but I wanted to bring up this CloudFront. I want to talk about CDN and CloudFront, and maybe I want to wire that up with Route 53 and then give a complete end-to-end picture, and then we will dig deep. That's my plan. What do you guys think? Shall we take a break? Okay, let's take 10-15. Let's
Sure. Okay.
10-15. Okay, 10 minutes break.
Sure.
Let me stop the recording actually here.